Pandemic-related federal unemployment benefits programs just ended. Time for everyone to get back to work, right? Right? Hello and welcome to Practical Personal Finance, where you get the information you need to understand and succeed with money. Yesterday, without any action by the federal government, certain unemployment benefits programs originally put in place under the CARES Act all the way back in March of 2020 finally expired. 3 programs came to an end: the Pandemic Emergency Unemployment Compensation Program, the Federal Pandemic Unemployment Compensation Program, and the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance Program. Many small business owners across the country, as well as conservative lawmakers, have pointed to these programs as the primary cause of a massive labor shortage we're currently facing. But is that really the case? Or are there other reasons people aren't going back to work? I'm going to spend the next few minutes reviewing what these 3 programs were and how they may or may not have been contributing to the shortage of labor. But before I do that, if you enjoy learning about topics like this, as well as personal finance and investing, click that red subscribe button down below. And while you're at it, do me a favor and give this video a thumbs up as well. We'll start with a quick rundown of the 3 programs that just ended. First is the Pandemic Emergency Unemployment Compensation Program, commonly referred to as PEUC. This program extended the amount of time that people would be eligible to receive unemployment benefits for. Usually unemployment claims are limited to a certain number of weeks, and the PEUC program added a bunch of extra weeks. Second is the Federal Pandemic Unemployment Compensation Program, commonly known as FPUC. This program added several $100s to each and every unemployment check, courtesy of the federal government. At the beginning, it was $600 per week. Then the program was put on hold for a few months, and later it was revived at $300 per week. Now, it's gone. Third is the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance Program, commonly referred to as PUA. This program expanded unemployment benefits by increasing the number of people who were eligible to receive them. Traditionally, if you're not a W-2 employee, you aren't covered by state unemployment benefits because you don't have an employer who's paying for unemployment insurance on your behalf. So when the pandemic kicked into high gear, a lot of freelancers, gig workers, and other self-employed individuals were in a real pinch. Thankfully, the federal government swooped in and made these groups eligible for unemployment payments. But now, the PUA program is gone as well. The expiration of these 3 programs means that roughly 3 million Americans will lose the extra $300 per week from the FPUC program, and roughly 7.5 million will lose their unemployment benefits entirely, all at the same time. Yikes. Now, as I mentioned earlier, conservatives and small business owners all over the US have been quick to suggest that these 3 programs are the root cause of the current labor shortage across the country. They argue that people aren't returning to work because the federal government continues to send them a check every week for being unemployed. They believe those checks are disincentivizing workers who would otherwise be out hunting for a job. And yeah, it's pretty easy to see the logic in that argument. If I had the choice of sitting at home and collecting a $300 unemployment check every week from the government, or working 40 hours per week at a minimum wage job to earn a $300 paycheck, I'd probably be sitting at home. And that very well might be the case for millions of people. But are federal unemployment benefits really the reason people aren't going back to work? Or could there be another root cause? Here are 3 other reasons that employers might be having a hard time finding workers. First and foremost is that regardless of where you stand on federal unemployment benefits, it's hard to argue with the fact that we are still in the midst of a global pandemic. In the US, even with access to vaccines, there are still over 150,000 people getting sick and over 1,000 people dying every single day. That's more than just about any other point in the past 18 months, with the lone exception being at the beginning of 2021, shortly after the holiday season and all the large indoor family gatherings that came with it. If you were hesitant to return to work at just about any other time throughout the pandemic, I think it's unlikely that you'd feel any more comfortable right now. Second is childcare, and there are plenty of angles on this one. If you had a child under the age of 5 who was not yet in school, would you feel completely comfortable putting him in daycare, unvaccinated, with a bunch of other unvaccinated children, just so you could net a few bucks? Daycare is expensive. Unless you have a really well-paying job, the prospect of working isn't too appealing right now. What about if your second or third grader was exposed to a classmate and had to be quarantined for a few days? You can't leave her home alone while you're at work. How could you hope to keep a job when it's somewhat likely you'll need to suddenly take off a week to be at home with your child? It's just not feasible. Last but not least is changing work preferences. I believe there are a lot of people out there who were displaced from their jobs during the pandemic and decided to go back to school, found they enjoyed being a stay-at-home parent, or finally got the push they needed to start their own small business. These types of people aren't going to return to the workforce because federal unemployment benefit programs are ending. If they ever do begin searching for a job again, it will be at some point in the distant future. Look, do I believe that federal unemployment programs contributed in some way to the current labor shortage? Absolutely. But they're just one of many factors keeping people out of work right now. I'm sure the unemployment rate will be trending downward over the next month, but I do not expect all 11 million people affected by the expiration to suddenly jump back into the workforce. That's not going to happen until this pandemic is behind us. What do you think will happen next, now that the pandemic federal unemployment benefits have expired? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, click right here to learn more about why you should consider doing your banking at a credit union. And if you're not yet a PPF subscriber, click here to hop on board. As always, thanks for watching. I'm Andrew Shear, and I'll see you next time.